Shares in Deutsche Bank slump as worries about the stability of the banking sector spread. China hits back after TikTok's chief comes under fire from US lawmakers. Welcome to World Business Report. I'm Mark Lobel. There are warning signs from the banks again. A double whammy on Friday leading to a steep sell-off in European banking stocks. Firstly, news of a US investigation into Credit Suisse and UBS after Bloomberg reported they are among the banks under scrutiny in a US Department of Justice probe into whether financial professionals help Russian oligarchs evade sanctions. Shares of UBS and Credit Suisse fell more than 6%. And secondly, Deutsche Bank slumped more than 13% after a sharp jump in the cost of insuring against the risk of default after concerns about what happened to Credit Suisse. Well, plenty to discuss there about what is happening with Russ Mould, from an investment director from AJ Investments. Russ, what is happening? Can you help us?
If only. Well, I'll do my best, Mark. I mean, I think that the news on UBS and Credit Suisse in a regulatory investigation is clearly unfortunate and not ideal timing, given that the UBS take under of Credit Suisse. Equally, both firms have been under regulatory scrutiny before, so in some ways we possibly shouldn't be quite so shocked there. I think the slide in Deutsche Bank share price is indicative of a wider still loss of confidence in the banking sector among investors. I think there's a gathering fear that central banks may have overdone it with interest rate increases, having left them too low for too long. I think there's a gathering fear that they may now have overcompensated, with the result that the possibility is a recession, and that in that environment, banks will generally find it pretty hard going. And if you look within the banking sector, investors are fleeing from those with big investment banks and regional smaller banks to the bigger banks that are more exposed to more traditional levels of banking. So there's a flight to quality and safety within the banking sector as well as a sort of a wider desire to avoid it.
And I guess the other side of those increased interest rates at the time that they've been increased by central bankers is concerns to businesses. There was an appeal, of course, by the Bank of England governor today to businesses not to raise their prices. And yet we've seen higher retail prices, retail sales recently, and also concerns over inflation.
Yeah, Mr. Bailey and the Bank of England find themselves in a very difficult situation. I've heard it described as a trilemma. They're trying to bring inflation back in, and some of it is due to things that are frankly just beyond their control. They can't control the price of, the availability of tomatoes from Morocco or salad from Spain, and prices have gone up as a result of that. There's nothing they can do. Making people's mortgage there just won't make any difference to how much salad or tomato supply or pricing. So they're trying to look at inflation on one side. They're trying to keep the economy on track. The Office for Budget Responsibility here in the UK saying there won't be a recession. I'm not sure markets are totally convinced. And at the same time, they're trying to maintain financial stability. So they've got three things to try and do all at once with a fairly blunt tool, which is interest rates and monetary policy. Although Mr. Bailey, the Bank of England governor, will say they have other tools available to them, as they proved last autumn when they did manage to calm the bond markets and the UK economy after the failed experiment that was Trussonomics.
All right, Russ Mould, an investment director at AJ Bell. Thanks so much for joining us here on World Business Report. Now, China says it has never asked any company to provide data located in foreign countries and has no plans to do so. Its foreign ministry has been responding to the controversy surrounding the video sharing app TikTok. It follows fiery scenes as the social media app's chief, Shou Chu, was grilled by US lawmakers over a range of issues, including the company's Chinese ownership. The Biden administration is threatening to ban the social media app if the company's Chinese owners don't sell their stakes. Well, TikTok is, of course, wildly popular in America. It has 150 million users there, which includes almost 5 million businesses. Our North America business correspondent, Michelle Fleury, has been following the story in Washington, D.C.
It was never going to be easy, but from the moment the committee chairman opened the hearing calling for TikTok to be banned in the United States, there was no let-up. TikTok CEO Shou Chu was bombarded by lawmakers worried that the app's Chinese ownership makes it untrustworthy and that it is harmful to American teenagers. Politicians of all stripes slammed TikTok, including Republican Representative Buddy Carter.
The Chinese Communist Party is engaged in psychological warfare through TikTok to deliberately influence U.S. children.
Out of the gate, the Singaporean boss of TikTok sought to push back against this characterization.
Would also like to talk about national security concerns that you have raised, that we take very, very seriously. Let me start by addressing a few misconceptions about ByteDance, of which we are a subsidiary. ByteDance is not owned or controlled by the Chinese government. It's a private company. 60% of the company is owned by global institutional investors. 20% is owned by the founder, and 20% owned by employees around the world.
But lawmakers remain skeptical, leading to some contentious exchanges like this one.
Have you directed them to change that source code?
Congressman, if you give me a bit of time to just...
No, I don't. It's a yes or no question. Have you directed your engineers to change that source code?
I'm not sure I understand.
Why are you allowing TikTok to continue to have the capacity for censorship, and yet you claim here that you don't?
On Wednesday, TikTok gathered a group of influencers to protest the Biden administration's threat to ban the app unless it divests from its Chinese owners.
TikTok has done much more than just give me exposure. It has actually allowed me to increase my income by 700%. And this extra income has allowed me to support myself, build a studio, and pay staff. And then this platform is taken away, then I'm not sure if I'll be able to continue to do that.
Despite the app's rapid growth in America and despite the CEO's promise to earn the country's trust, it's unlikely that those worried about TikTok will have changed their minds after this hearing. Michelle Fleury, BBC News in Washington.
The Spanish car maker SEAT has started work on a $10 billion programme for electrified cars and infrastructure. The project got underway as the European Union announced billions of dollars of subsidies for the green transition, going toe-to-toe with massive subsidies announced last year by President Biden in the United States. Well, on this week's Talking Business with Ben Thompson, he asked the boss of SEAT how big a part of their decision to invest more in Spain was down to subsidies.
I think it is playing a key role at the moment, and we have to make sure that Europe, because it's basically a battlefield in Europe, that we maintain our competitiveness, particularly against the US. So, in our decision for the 10 billion in investment in Spain, the Spanish government played a key role. We had a unique moment in time, a unique opportunity with the European Next Generation funds. That we could use to support us in making our decision, particularly for the new activity of the battery plant in Valencia. That was absolutely key and essential. And as I say, I think, looking ahead, when we see what's happening in the United States and also in Canada, in the North American region, Europe needs to maintain its competitiveness.
Yes, and that neatly gets us onto that story in the headlines of late. You are part of the VW group. There's a lot of speculation that the group may decide, instead of setting up that big investment in Eastern Europe, that money may go to the US instead to take advantage of some of their new subsidies. How much truth is there in that?
I can't comment on the plans of Volkswagen Group in East Europe, because I'm here in Southern Europe, in Spain. And I can confirm that we're doing our investment here for the battery electric plants and for the battery plants here. I think you also need battery plants close to where you produce your cars. And we produce small electric cars in Spain, so it makes a lot of sense for us to have that battery plant here in Spain. There's another factor, however, that I'd like to bring to the table, not just the subventions, and that's if you're going to build battery electric vehicles with zero emissions, then you need renewable energy to do that. It doesn't make sense to build batteries, electric batteries, with fossil fuel generated electricity. So I think, particularly in the case of Spain, with 50% of energy sourced from renewable energy, and the potential of that become even more. You can see behind me, I'm in downtown Barcelona, the sun is shining, the sun shines here 300 days a year. So we have a huge potential of renewable energy. And I think that plays an important role and has played a decisive role in the case of Spain.
You can see more of Ben's interview with SEAT boss Wayne Griffiths on Talking Business this weekend. The first airing on BBC World News is at 10:30 GMT on Friday, and in the UK it's at 3:30 on Saturday.
You're watching BBC News, I'm Martine Croxall. The BBC has seen data that suggests older workers are less likely to get jobs at the UK Treasury than younger people. It comes as the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt urges the over 50s to return to work to help tackle staff shortages. The Treasury said its recruitment processes were fair, open and based on merit.